Chapter 91. Upper Echelons Meeting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 91. Upper Echelons Meeting. Translator David T. Editor. As they rode on their horses into the courtyard, they were greeted with a garden-like scenery with blue waters surrounding them, fake mountains erected. The feeling of spring, with flowers and bushes all around with a wonderful fragrance. It made one feel as though they were in the holiday resort of a duke. After going past the front hall, there was a small training field with white populous trees around it. Behind the trees were neatly arranged houses able to fit a few thousand people. Every door had a short willow tree beside it, swaying in the wind. By the sides of the doors, there were 2 pots of flowers, making it look like the residence of the common folk. It was there to fool people. Walking in deeper, their view suddenly widened, walking into a large, well-equipped plaza capable of holding 10,000 people at once. After crossing the plaza, Mount Victory would be up ahead. For the construction of the outer wall and houses, Ling Tian ordered that the required rocks can only be extracted from Mount Victory. At the same time, he sent someone to specially oversee the whole excavation process. After the courtyard was fully completed, almost half of Mount Victory was dug away. The large volume of rocks being dug out formed a deep cave with 2 huge stone doors on the outside. Apart from a large training room, a few stone chambers were dug out as per Ling Tian's request. This place was the real secret base. Only after achieving an outstanding result on the outside will they have the chance to enter this cave to train. Those training in the cave would be changed every month, with every batch being completely different. In the eyes of Ling Tian's private army of 20,000, it was a glorious affair to be able to enter the cave. Entering the cave would mean that they received the approval of the young noble. Thus, in order to enter the cave, everyone would train like mad. As such, their strength had rose rapidly. As the 8 burly guards saw Ling Tian arrived, they took a bow and opened the stone door. Ling Tian did not stop as he instructed, call Feng, Yun, Lei, Qi, Jian and Lu, Qi, Ba, Jiu, sure to my study. After acknowledging his command, they went to inform the relevant people. A short while later, the people who Ling Tian requested for arrived at his study. While it was called a study, it was actually a cave with a few simple table and chairs. Ling Tian nodded his head as he saw that everyone had arrived. Then, he pressed a switch on the table. With the sound of grinding gears, the stone wall behind Ling Tian flipped open, revealing a large space. In the middle of the space was a large, oval stone desk with chairs filled around it. It looked exactly like a modern-day conference room. In truth, Ling Tian had modeled this room after a modern-day conference room. By the side of the walls, there were large bookcases with blank spaces separating many small compartments, being stuffed with different information. Every compartment would have the name of an empire, aristocratic family, with the large majority being filled with names. This was Ling Tian's information gathering net. In these few years, he had collected news from all over the continent. Every other day, there will be someone who would come here to categorize the information and arrange it neatly. This was like the archive room from his previous life. Anyone who is able to enter this room had either followed him since he was young, or was nurtured by Ling Tian from young. They were all the aides which he trusted. These were the core personnels in his current organization. All of them stood up straight with hands behind their backs as they looked at Ling Tian with a face full of worship and admiration. While Ling Tian was like a good-for-nothing youth in the Ling family, he was the Iron Mask Hades in the Ling family courtyard. As Ling Tian grew up, his authority began to grow as his body gradually began to emanate prestige and majesty. In front of Ling Tian, they all felt as though they were looking at the peak of a tall mountain. Ling Tian sat down calmly at the head of the table and Ling Chen stood behind him with a chilly face, her cold gaze sweeping past the whole crowd. Out of respect for Ling Tian, they did not dare to look down on Ling Chen either. They all knew that Ling Chen was the closest to Ling Tian. Thus, they would only call her Miss Chen usually and would not address her by her name. Furthermore, everyone in front of Ling Tian now had suffered under Ling Chen before. While they knew that she was Ling Tian's personal maid, her martial arts was also a head above the rest. In the Ling family courtyard, only Ling Jian, who everyone feared, was able to compete with her. The rest of them were not even able to last 10 moves against her. As such, they were all afraid of this cold but beautiful lady. They knew that if they offended Ling Tian may still let them off the hook and give them a lenient punishment. But if they were to frustrate Ling Chen, it would be worse than frustrating their young noble. It would probably be useless even if Ling Jian were to personally plead on their behalfs. After glancing at everyone, Ling Tian said calmly, "Take a seat." Everyone acknowledged and sat down silently. They then looked at Ling Tian, knowing that their young noble would probably have something big to tell them. Just when Ling Tian wanted to open his mouth, he thought of something and instructed, "Ling Qi, go and call Feng Mo and Wang Han over. There is something for me to instruct them today." Ling Qi was a scrawny teen with a resolute gaze. After hearing Ling Tian's instructions, he acknowledged it and left swiftly. Ling Tian then hammered the stone desk lightly with his finger as he asked, "Ling Qi is in charge of the south, right?" A well-built young man stood up and said, "Yes, young noble." Ling Tian responded with a and said, "Go and take out all the information regarding the marriages of the children in the Nangong family. Also, bring out all the information on Nangong Lu and Nangong Yu, together with their relationship with the successor. Bring out anything related to these things. I want them in front of me before Feng Mo arrives." Without a change in expression, Ling Qi said, "Yes." He then stood up and walked to the bookcase to search for the information. "Ling Jiu, go and take out the same information regarding the Yang family." "Ling Lu, information on the Yu family." "Yes, young noble." The stone door then opened gently as 2 maids walked in, one holding hot water and the other holding a tea set. After placing a cup of tea in front of everyone, they left silently. From the start to the end, they did not dare to lift their head and look at Ling Tian. When they glanced at him occasionally, their gazes would be full of worship and gratitude. Ling Tian then read through the information Ling Qi and Ling Jiu presented to him with his eyebrows furrowed. Reporting to young noble, Feng Mo and Wang Han requests to enter. Ling Tian responded with a, "Oh," while it wasn't loud, it passed through the door, entering into the ears of the person outside. Feng Mo and Wang Han then walked in respectfully. The both of them were filled with explosive muscles, burly and tall. Chapter 92. Deploying once more. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 92. Deploying once more. Translator. Chuchutrain editor. Sel Ling Tian folded up the reports in his hands and said blandly, "Sit." As the crowd shuffled to their respective places, Ling Tian continued, "Feng Mo, Wang Han, the reason I've called you here today is to inform you guys that the training from now on will not be paused. However, in terms of noise, try to keep it to the minimum and do not attract any attention by doing something overly big. This is to prevent any unwanted attention. Noted. Young noble, is there anybody who wants to deal with us?" Both Feng Mo and Wang Han stood upright as they gave out sounds of assent. However, Wang Han asked a question out of puzzlement. Ling Tian merely lifted up the teacup in front of him, lightly blowing on the surface of the tea, not bothering to reply. He did not even glance at Wang Han, as though the latter had never spoken. Ling Chen, Ling Qi, Ling Feng as well as the others in the room all suddenly developed frosty expressions. In that instant, 7 to 8 pairs of eyes viciously glared at Wang Han. These assassins, who were even feared by the military forces everywhere, did not even bother to conserve a bit of their killing intent towards him. If it were not for the fact that Ling Tian was merely sitting there calmly, Wang Han would have long turned into a cold corpse. And that corpse would definitely not be intact. At this point, Wang Han's face already resembled a waterfall, the cold sweat dripping unceasingly off his forehead. What a joke, to be able to remain standing with so many killing intents from world-famous assassins targeted at him would already be an achievement. As for Feng Mo standing beside him, his face took on a huge change when he heard Wang Han speak, and naturally also glared at him. He could not help but regret that he could not beat him up on the spot. Ping! The teacup was placed back on the table as Ling Tian slowly spoke, "Forget it. This shall be the first, and also the last time." Once he spoke, Wang Han suddenly could feel that the suffocating killing intent had suddenly vanished, as though it was never there in the first place. Everybody's eyes were still glued to him, but it was already lacking the previously ferocious intent. Wang Han's legs were trembling non-stop, his shirt already drenched with sweat. He stood there, eyes wide open, not knowing what had just transpired. Why was it that a single sentence of his resulted in everyone wanting to kill him? Ling Chen then remarked coldly, "Wang Han, you should celebrate that Ling Jian is not here today. Or else, the moment you opened your mouth, you would have already turned into a corpse." Ling Tian waved that comment away, saying, "Forget it. Feng Mo, you two can leave first." Feng Mo respectfully gave a solemn bow and dragged Wang Han out with a hand. Though Wang Han was still standing straight, he had no strength left in his legs and was on the verge of collapse. Only upon walking out of the stone door of the cave, did Wang Han finally regain his senses. He then asked in a trembling voice, "Old Feng, what just happened? What did I say wrongly?" Feng Mo glared at him for a long time, before his gaze turned slightly gentler as he sighed, "You have never been to the secret chamber, right?" Wang Han nodded silently. Feng Mo continued in a harsh tone, "That secret chamber is where the young noble personally assigns his commands and orders. Everybody who steps into there does not talk. They only need to follow his orders, and this is without exception. After stepping out of that door, even if you want to engage the young noble in a spar, no one will stop you. They would only jeer at you for overestimating your capabilities. However, if you dare to speak out of line in the secret chamber, that signifies disrespect to the young noble. Lady Chen was correct in saying that you would be dead if Ling Jian was present. He would definitely not allow anyone to challenge the young noble's authority." Thinking of Ling Jian, who was akin to Hades from hell, Wang Han's forehead began to sweat profusely once again. It was only after a long time did he manage to say, "Why didn't you tell me that earlier?" Feng Mo looked at him, giving a smile that was not a smile at the same time, "I thought that you had went in there before." Wang Han muttered to himself, seemingly cursing and swearing at Feng Mo. He was also one of the 30.6 Blood Iron Warriors and always had a close relation with Feng Mo. It was only because he had an outstanding performance recently, that he was promoted to become Feng Mo's assistant. Feng Mo sighed as he spoke, "It took me such a long time to actually see the young noble once, and I actually wanted to talk to him more, to see if he could give me some pointers. But, it was ruined by you." He held back another sentence, which was the fact that being allowed entry into the secret chamber meant that Ling Tian had given Feng Mo the authority and trust of one in his inner circle. However, because of Wang Han's fault, this matter would be delayed for another few months. If Wang Han were to realize how serious the repercussions of his sentence was, he would be guilty for a long time. Inside the secret chamber, Ling Tian told whatever that he inferred from the little princess of the Yu family to them and added in his own hypothesis. All of them displayed an expression of shock without exception. Ling Tian then continued, "Ling Qi, don't let the first pavilion take any business from the north, and try to avoid the Yu family." Since Ling Jian was not around, the first pavilion was supervised by Ling Qi, who was the youngest in age. Other than Ling Jian, Ling Qi was the strongest in the first pavilion. Ling Tian took in a deep breath, before giving more instructions. The first pavilion might not be moving around in the north, but Ling Lu, Qi, Ba, Jiu, the four of you must tighten your surveillance in the north instead. Other than Ling Lu, who was originally responsible for the north, the other 3 must also put in your best efforts to assist him. Every little detail must be thoroughly investigated and report all findings back to the courtyard as soon as possible. The 4 of them stood up simultaneously. Yes, young noble. Notify Ling Shi and get him to train another batch of messenger falcons as fast as he can. Yes. Also notify Ling Wu to stop smelting the regular sabers and swords and to stop all outside transactions. Intensify the production of the high-quality weapons that I've talked about to him. Ask him to hurry up as well. Within a year, I want all our brothers to be equipped with the better quality swords and sabers. This matter cannot be leaked as well. Yes, young noble. Inform Ling San and Li Lin to speed up the infiltration of the Violent Wind Gang into the officials of the Imperial Court. Especially for the Rights Minister, Wei Jingfeng, special attention must be given to him. I want them to scrutinize every single person who enters and leaves his mansion. Where they went, what they did, I want to know every single detail without any negligence. Furthermore, all of you have to be careful as there may be experts hidden in Wei Jingfeng's house. Those who are deployed there have to be trustworthy. As he finished, Ling Tian's tone seemed to be more gentle. Yes, young noble can be assured of this. Ling Qi, notify Ling Jian, tell him to tie up his loose ends and return back soon. Yes. Young noble, I'll inform my big brother immediately. Good. Ling Tian smiled. Everyone could then feel the tension in the room subsequently relax. All of these people sitting here were the confidants of Ling Tian. So, they all knew that Ling Tian would smile after issuing out all of his orders to mark the end of the meeting. Once he smiled, this would mean that the matters for today had come to an end. But, Ling Tian's next sentence made all those from the first pavilion reveal bitter expressions. After we get out, all those from the first pavilion, come spar with me. I'll check out your progress, and you can let your sister Chen loosen her muscles a little too. Feng, Yun, Lei, Jian and Qi looked at the eager Ling Chen and exchanged a look of despair with each other. Their young noble was better in the regard that he knew how to hold back. But, their sister Chen did not hold back any punches. It was more like being tortured rather than giving pointers. Chapter 93. Testing the U family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 93. Testing the U family. Translator. Chuchutrain Editor. Sel Ling Tian and Ling Chen were on horseback, rushing back to the Ling residence. Chenner, how was it just now? Seeing Ling Chen's flushed cheeks, full of joy, Ling Tian could not resist laughing. Ling Chen pouted in response, those few jerks are becoming more and more sly, it took me a lot more trouble to beat them up this time. Ha ha ha, how easy did you expect it to be? As Ling Tian thought of how the 5 of them lying on the ground in miserable conditions when he and Ling Chen left, he could not help but laugh out loud. Even though those fellows were mostly pretending, it was no lie that they did suffered under the hands of Ling Chen. Ling Tian had merely given them a few tips before he left the courtyard with Ling Chen. Ling Chen shook her waist, rolling her eyes flirtatiously at him. Then, she giggled and urged her horse forward, rushing in front. Ling Tian laughed as he chased after her. Their conversation was faintly discernible, drifting about in the wind. Tonight, you can go try out that secretive. In the Rights Minister's residence. The lanterns were lit in the early evening, turning the residence into a mass of flickering lights. Within a specially constructed courtyard, a few people sat facing each other with grim expressions on their faces. With the same disguised face, the little princess of the Yu family, Yu Bingyan, sat between 2 parties, a hand propping up her chin with her expression filled with worry. Those 2 middle-aged women who had accompanied her during the daytime were sitting by one side. Inside the room, there were another 5 to 6 more people, all seated in an orderly position. In the shadows of the room sat another indistinct silhouette, without uttering a single word. That young noble Ling definitely hidden himself very well. Someone so knowledgeable yet able to conceal himself so well, this is the first time I met someone like that. One of the middle-aged women was talking. In her tone, one could sense traces wariness as well as an unrestrained admiration. That's right. Although this man is well-learned and cultured, his schemes run deep. This humble one feels that little princess should maintain your distance from him. The other middle-aged female bodyguard replied. Yu Bingyan's brows knitted in hesitation before turning to the silent figure enveloped in darkness. Uncle Shui, you've always been by my side, what do you think of this? The shadow at the corner shook, and it was only after a long while did he finally reply. His voice was sonorous and grating, much like two metals colliding with each other. I am unable to see through this person. He feels very dangerous. Dangerous. Uncle Shui, could you possibly be mistaken? He is only a feeble scholar, how could he let you feel danger? And where would the danger be from? Yu Bingyan giggled as she spoke. He definitely feels dangerous. Uncle Shui, who was in the shadows, did not attempt to refute her, and only heavily repeated what he just said before closing his mouth. Yu Bingyan pondered deeply for a while before revealing a desolate expression in her eyes. Even though he might be dangerous, but what else can I do? I only wish to learn painting from him. What else could I amount to with my body, my status, as well as my incoming fate? Everyone turned solemn at this, as they looked towards Yu Bingyan with concern in their eyes. One of the middle-aged women could not help but comfort her. If little princess only wishes to learn painting from him, that can be easily settled. The celebration will go on for another 3 days and he will definitely reappear. At that time, if little princess could request for him to teach you together with Lady Wei, I'm sure he won't reject you, right? Although this was phrased as a question, the woman's tone was full of confidence. Yu Bingyan slowly nodded and did not mention this matter any longer. Obviously, she had already came to a decision in her heart. Turning her head instead, she addressed those beside her, how about the other side? Any news? The way she asked had no heads nor tails, but it was clear that all present understood her meaning. The other female bodyguard moved her mouth, but no sound came out from it. Finally, she lowered her head instead. Yu Bingyan only responded calmly, it's all right, just speak your mind. The outcome has long been set, what are you so hesitant about? The female bodyguard in question replied in a low voice, based on reports, Miss Shui is blessed with extraordinary intelligence and is already a top-class expert. She has begun to practice the family's sword art. Yu Bingyan smiled lightly as she said, she has already started on the family's sword art. Most likely she has already mastered it, hasn't she? Lowering her head with a sigh, she continued, I've long wanted to pay her a visit and have a heart-to-heart talk with her. After all, we both have the same fate, who knows, we might actually end up as friends. Then this would be such a great story. 3 years. There's still 3 years. There's only 3 years. At the last part, she sighed once more. A lingering sigh sounded from her frail and delicate chest, full of helplessness and sorrow. As though infected by the little princess's melancholic mood, the crowd sunk into silence. Thinking about the little princess's fate, everyone immediately felt as though they were being pressed down by a heavy stone slab, pressured to the point of being unable to breathe. From the window outside, there was a sudden sound of clothes rustling, followed by a light laughter resounding in everyone's ears. The shadowy figure hidden in the corner suddenly twisted his body. Sword light flashed past the crowd's eyes, as man and sword, combined as one, pierced through the window. This was followed by ding-ding sounds as the weapons clashed with each other outside, as though a torrential downpour had started. The group of people all ran out into the courtyard, raising their heads to catch sight of the unknown intruder. What they saw made them all take in a breath of cold air. A blur of black and white flashed past each other. For a moment, no one could tell each of them apart. They only knew that the drifting black shadow was the shadowy figure belonging to their side. But, the agile white shadow was indistinct and they could only assume it was a woman from the party's lithe figure. The two swords flashing in the night sky was incomparably magnificent. Occasionally, both figures would soar through the air and exchange a few blows, then stagger apart from each other. However, by the next moment, both halves would have merged back into one whole. Their movement skills were exquisite beyond belief. Suddenly left, then right, appearing south, then north, akin to spirits. Dang! The crisp sound of weapons clashing sounded, as sparks flew in all directions mid-air. Both parties did an aerial flip, separating from each other and landed far apart with swords still pointed towards the other person. Two pairs of eyes let out equally ice-cold expressions, staring unblinkingly at the other. Only then was the audience able to see that the white shadow was actually a masked person dressed totally in white, with a tall stature and delicate curves. Behind the mask was a pair of limpid eyes akin to the autumn waters and long hair like a waterfall cascading down. This elegant figure of a woman stood on the rooftop, looking like an immortal who had descended down to earth. The sword in her hand looked like a river under the moonlight. Even after such a fierce confrontation, she actually remained relaxed, unrestrained and elegant. The black shadow stood up straight with sword pointing forward, the sword tip shaking incessantly, leaving afterimages behind. Evidently, all his energy had been compressed into the sword he was holding. Once he moved, it would be akin to a flash of lightning. After that brief exchange, both parties had a rough gauge of their opponent's strength in their hearts. Though the girl in white was young, she could be considered one of the most skilled experts the man had ever met in his life. Now that the little princess was residing in the sky-bearing empire, the presence of such an expert is definitely a grave threat. The black shadow had made a resolute decision in his heart. No matter the consequences, I cannot let this girl leave tonight. A cool breeze blew gently, the robes of both waving in it. The white-robed girl's body seemed to follow the gentle breeze to float upwards, and with a flick of her slim wrist, the sword in her hands transformed into a dazzling brilliance, tearing apart the night sky. To think she took the initiative to attack. Her sword was like an antelope's horns thrusting forward, leaving no vestiges behind. The sword intent flowed like waters in a spring, continuous and unbroken. The black shadow, who was about to release his own move, suddenly turned sluggish as he exclaimed in shock, "Water of heavenly wind." Once this sentence was spoken, all the experts within the Yu family crowd had a complete change in expression. In the corner of the small courtyard, another black shadow suddenly rushed towards the sky like an arc of electricity. The sword in his hands appeared like a venomous snake, aimed at the back of the white-robed lady. It was as though hearing the four words, "water of heavenly wind," had triggered some sort of response within him, making him attack with no concern for his own safety. With one in front and one behind, both black-robed men attacked at the same time in a pincer attack. The white-robed girl flipped upwards, avoiding the sword in front of her. With a flash of her sword, much like a bolt of lightning, it clashed with the sword behind her. The man behind her had urged on with his full strength, but discovered, to his shock, that her sword seemed to be without any strength, as light as a feather. He could not help but exclaim in his heart, "I was tricked." What happened next was even more surprising. After receiving the sword head-on, the lady in white did not rely on the force to pull apart their distance. Instead, she flipped upwards 30 feet into the air. Right now, she had nothing to rely on for support in mid-air. With the old force fading off and no new force applied, she was in a perilous situation. Seeing how she actually dug her own grave, both the black-robed men were flabbergasted. But, they raised their swords to await the moment she dropped down, for that would be the time for her to go to the Yellow Springs. Chapter 94. Water of Heavenly Wind. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 94. Water of Heavenly Wind. Translator. Chuchatrain Editor. Cell. With no sound and warning whatsoever, the sound of an item wheezing through the air came from afar. The trajectory of the item was extremely ingenious and speed of it akin to light. Just as the white-robed girl reached the apex of her jump, the item positioned itself under her feet, allowing the girl to daintily step on it, relying on it to exert force. In mid-air, her robes fluttered with the wind, akin to a celestial maiden riding the winds. As for the object that she stepped on, it shattered into two with a "kacha" sound, producing a whistling sound as it shot towards the two black-robed men. Both men simultaneously struck out with their palms, knocking the two objects onto the ground. They turned out to be only tiles. Both the black-robed men were experts with great status, how could they endure being toyed with? Both activated their movement techniques with a whistle, chasing after the white-robed girl like a bolt of lightning. The white-robed girl merely floated ahead, neither too fast nor too slow, as though she did not put the two enemies on her tail in her eyes at all. Even as their swords was about to pierce her, she was still unmoved and indifferent. As the swords tilted towards her, yet another white blur appeared out of nowhere like a ghost, with speed at least twice of the white-robed girl. In a flash, the white blur had already appeared in the middle of the three. With a flip of his hands, he actually managed to trap the blades of the two swords belonging to the black men. This caused great shock to both the black-robed men. Urging their internal strength, they attempted to retrieve their swords. If the black-robed men were to be relieved of their swords in a face-to-face confrontation by this white-robed person, these two arrogant men would probably kill themselves out of humiliation. However, the white-robed person seized the advantage while both men were focusing their strength to retrieve their swords. With a shake of his hands, two imposing forces were ingeniously projected respectively into both swords. Caught unawares and unable to defend, both the black-robed men were forced backwards to the left and right with a bedraggled appearance. The white-robed person, however, did not press on. Instead, he took the white-robed female in front and loftily soaring to another rooftop far away from them. He then spoke in a strange-sounding voice, "What great talents the Yu family has. Having two experts trap a young girl in a pincer attack. This sort of courage and resource has greatly broadened this one's horizons." Both the black-robed men were still trying to catch their breaths, with their chests undulating inconsistently. One of them then spat out viciously, "Don't think that I won't know both of your identities just because the both of you are hiding behind masks. Water of heavenly wind, aren't you people too unbridled? To think you people actually dare to disregard the millennia-long contract signed between our ancestors. The 60-year battle of 3 generations is only a mere 3 years away, but you people actually dare to appear here so brazenly, the both of your guts aren't small either." The two white-robed people were precisely Ling Tian and Ling Chen. Ling Chen now stood beside Ling Tian, her eyes cold and apathetic. As long as Ling Tian was by her side, Ling Chen was unwilling to have any thoughts, unwilling to use her brains. This was because so long as Ling Tian was present, all she wanted to do was to follow his instructions to a fault. All women were like thus, if the man of their dreams was stronger than them, then she would not bother putting in the effort to think, blindly believing in their own beloved to take care of it. If a woman could display this sort of attitude in front of a man, this would also mean that her heart had been totally conquered by him. Water of heavenly wind. What is that supposed to mean? Ling Tian's heart thumped violently at this new information. He thought, seems like what I've hypothesized in the past wasn't too far off. However, his eyes remained clear, not betraying his inner thoughts as he continued in that strange voice of his, now laced with some unhappiness, "We merely heard that little Princess Yu was residing here, and specially came to greet her. Is there a need to use our ancestors' teachings to pressure us? Ha ha ha. Preposterous. Ridiculous." In his anger, his originally dark face actually had a change in color as he retorted, "You people have turned your back on the treaty and have come to Heavenly Star of your own volition. This is already considered treachery. For you to have such guts to come over to spy on my house's little miss, that alone already explains your treacherous intent. This Shui would rather perish here than let you despicable people leave." The man refused to talk any more. With a flap of his arms, he soared up, brandishing his sword. With a sound akin to a clap of thunder, the sky lit up with sword beams. The man in question seemed to have turned into 1,000 armed Azura, the swords all directed towards Ling Tian. On the other side, the other silent black-robed man also sprang into action. Even before both men neared, Ling Tian's robes had already billowed out due to the gales that their sword arts created. Ling Tian merely smiled in response, the night had not been in vain for him. Seeing the aggressiveness of both men, he knew that the duo had planned to leave their lives here in return for theirs. He did not want to continue tangling with them, since he had already achieved his objective. Lingering around would be pointless. Throwing out his hands, 2 jets of noxious white smoke spurted out. In a split second, one could not even see their outstretched hands. The duo rushing over could not help but turn sluggish, for fear that the fog contained poison. Since they did not dare to enter the white fog, they could only look at each other and sigh. The black-robed duo subconsciously felt that for the figure in front of them, even if they were to join forces against them, they would still be undoubtedly defeated. They did not imagine that the opposing aristocratic family would actually have an expert of such a class. For this sort of character, most likely, his skill may not even lose out to their family head. Such news was no minor matter and they had to inform their own family head quickly, so as to make ample preparations. When the white fog dissipated, to no one's surprise, there was already no sign of the 2 masked figures in white. As far as the eye could see, there was only the night breeze blowing gently against the plants, letting them sway in the night. One could only see the stars and river, with the bright moon against the sky. The night may have regained its former peace, but those of the Yu family felt as though there was a boulder weighing down their hearts. Everyone had heavy hearts upon thinking that such formidable enemies were actually in their vicinity, impossible to defend against. The rest of the bodyguards were even paler after seeing the exchange between those people just moments ago. That sort of stage was a realm where they could never interfere in. They could imagine what exactly would happen to them if it were them meeting with such people. Is it really them? It shouldn't be wrong, the sword intent was continuous like flowing water, the movements of that person as though flowing along a river, there can't be any other. To think that they actually sent out such an expert. A solemn atmosphere pervaded the Yu family's people. Taking advantage of the darkness, Ling Tian and Ling Chen returned to their little courtyard without raising any noise. Chenner, send out the news. Inform Ling Jiao and the rest to pick a few highly capable men, and proceed to the Heavenly Wind continent to source for information. After hearing the exchange between the black-robed man and Ling Chen, especially the phrase, water of heavenly wind, Ling Tian began to feel that this could be the linchpin. Thus, he had no choice but to reveal himself, and true enough, he really obtained something of importance. The 1,000-year treaty set by the ancestors. This phrase talked about a treaty. What treaty was that? Most likely, the treaty had something to do with the Yu family. 60-year battle of 3 generations, what was that supposed to mean as well? Was it a matter regarding 2 aristocratic clans? You people have turned your back on the treaty, and have come to Heavenly Star of your own volition, this is already considered treachery. These 3 sentences had already given Ling Tian many clues and hints. There is indeed something fishy about all this. Ling Tian's eyes flickered with a hidden light as he muttered under his breath. I would really like to see how long you people can keep your presence veiled. Chapter 95. Insufficient experience. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 95. Insufficient experience. Translator. Chuchutrain editor. Sell very quickly. Ling Chen sent out the messenger falcons and took the chance to sit beside Ling Tian blissfully. With her jade-like hands massaging Ling Tian's shoulders, her delicate face was tinted with a flush, not unlike what one would get after a workout. She had long heard Ling Tian say that those people were the top-ranked experts in this present age, and to actually be on par with them tonight, furthermore when there were 2 against 1, Ling Chen could not help but feel excited. Looking at Ling Chen's face which was full of expectation for a praise by Ling Tian, the latter could not help but want to laugh. Yet he knew that right now was definitely not the time to do so. There was still a huge flaw for Ling Chen when it came to adapting to the situation. Even though there was no indication of losing in today's battle, Ling Tian, who was clear about Ling Chen's abilities, was clear that Ling Chen was already on the losing end. This was not a problem with her strength, nor her moves. In fact, the sword moves that Ling Tian had passed to her were complex beyond words, surpassing those black-robed men by at least one grade. Ling Chen's underperformance today was fully because of her inexperience. If Ling Tian were to praise her right now, it would only negatively impact her future progress. Looking at Ling Tian's solemn face staring back at her, the elation that filled Ling Chen slowly ebbed away. She looked at Ling Tian nervously, unsure of what crime she had committed. "Are you feeling very proud of yourself now?" A 16 to 17-year-old lass, actually holding her own against those at the peak of this world and actually not falling behind. "Quite self-satisfied, aren't you?" Looking at Ling Chen, Ling Tian's face was a little icy. You. Ling Chen only dared to take a peep at Ling Tian's expression, and immediately hung her head down. Her long eyelashes fluttered as the rims of her eyes began to turn red. "By rushing in like this, did you think that your timing was perfect? If you had waited for a moment before striking out, you would be placed in the most advantageous position possible. But you were greedy and advanced prematurely. If the men in black could deal with you, then you would have been defeated, and most likely injured. As for the troublesome move that the black-robed men perform, I've previously taught you how to overcome their moves, but what did you do? If not for the fact that your sword arts were far more superior than them, you would probably have trouble even escaping with your whole body intact. Once the battle drags on, they will get used to your style, which means that the danger will rise another level." Ling Tian lectured in a low tone. Seeing how Ling Chen was close to bursting out in tears, he began to feel as though his words were a little too harsh. However, he had no choice. If he did not burn this lesson into her mind, then if they were to meet with someone stronger in the future, she would definitely get into big trouble. The tears shed today would be better than the blood shed tomorrow. Ling Chen stood rooted with her head bowed down, not daring to talk. Seeing that, Ling Tian's voice also became gentle as he said, "Don't harp on it, these problems appeared because your experience in life or death scenarios is too little. Thus, these problems would occur. After you become more experienced, then the problems will also gradually disappear." Ling Chen wiped her eyes, sniffling as she replied, "Yes, young noble. Chenna knows her mistake." Ling Tian took a deep breath. He had already achieved his objective. Based on her intellect, Ling Chen would be able to figure out his meaning easily. He took her into his arms as he whispered gently, "You have to remember that when true experts fight, they will not wait for their opponents to utilize their moves before they go and attempt to counter them. Their bodies are so conditioned that they will naturally convert to the counter moves. This sort of feeling, I call it muscle memory. This can also be called an instinct of someone in the martial way. For most people, the speed of processing thoughts usually cannot be kept up with the limbs. As such, the limbs might surpass the mind totally. If you wait until you fully understand your opponent's moves before carrying out your counterattack, your life would have already ended up in the control of the enemy. After mastering muscle memory, even if you cannot defeat the opponent, you still can fight on equal grounds, without danger to your life." Ling Chen still had traces of tears in her eyes, but had already entered into a contemplative state, silently digesting the words which Ling Tian just spoke. Her dainty body continued to lie in Ling Tian's embrace, her head resting on his chest, and her hands wrapped around his waist. Ling Tian tenderly stroked her black, glossy hair, the corners of his mouth turned upwards in a gentle smile. In the room, what was full of thunder and gloom had suddenly morphed into a place full of warmth and love. Both parties did not make any sound, and though it was deep in the night, both did not have any intentions to sleep. The flame of the oil lantern on the table danced cheerfully, and emitted a spark with a "pa" sound, somehow increasing the joy in the room by a few notches. For the next 2 days, Ling Tian brought a cross-dressed Ling Chen out the moment the day broke. For those in the residence, they all thought that Ling Tian was headed to the imperial palace. In actual fact, Ling Tian spent those 2 days giving pointers to Ling Chen, Feng, Yun, Lei, Jian and Qi to increase their overall strength. While the joyous atmosphere in the imperial palace increased to an all-time high, so did the killing atmosphere in the Ling outer courtyard. After the battle Ling Chen had that night, the other 5 received huge setbacks when they heard about it. They were currently not even a match for Ling Chen, and to think that the duo could even hold a slight upper hand when against Ling Chen. Hearing such news, all 5 of them could not help but have reddened eyes. All of them could be seen practicing their sword moves from dawn to dusk, to the point where they could not even move a finger before they thought of resting. Ling Tian was not stingy too, and passed on all his battle experiences as well as core techniques. During training, even though those fellers were screaming to the heavens, they actually practiced even harder. Seeing this situation, Ling Tian also felt gratified. As for the little princess of the Yu family in Wei Xianxian, seeing as Ling Tian never appeared in their courtyard ever since the first day, they decided to go to the outer palace hall to take a look. Since Yu Bingyan was hiding her appearance, she hardly stood out. However, Wei Xianxian was in trouble. The moment the crowd of silk pants saw such a country-toppling beauty appear, they all crowded around her, appearing to be particularly attentive. This was especially so for the 3 Yang brothers, as well as Nangong Lu and Wang Bo. All of them stared at her as though they wanted to swallow her in a gulp. All of them gave the noble and virtuous Wei Xianxian a huge headache. For the whole of the second day, Ling Tian actually did not appear at all, causing the 2 ladies to feel disappointed. Actually, Wei Xianxian was not willing to attend this troublesome banquet on the 3rd day. But, Yu Bingyan was dead set on taking Ling Tian as her master in drawing, and thus pulled her back to the outer palace hall. The moment the babes appeared again, the silk pants formed a shield around them, leaping and crowding around the 2 of them with zest, as though they were precious jewels. Having not spotted Ling Tian, the 2 of them were disappointed, ignoring the silk pants pointedly before making an excuse before fleeing the scene. On the road back to the Wei residence, the girls were a little sulky. This was especially so for Yu Bingyan, who was extremely suspicious of Ling Tian in her heart. For someone as widely acclaimed to be a silk pants as him, isn't he embarrassing the title of silk pants by missing such an event? However, thinking from another angle, she felt relieved. If he did not even bother to show face by attending the banquet hosted personally by the emperor, this showed how rampant he actually was. Upon coming to this conclusion, Yu Bingyan could feel her depressed heart lightening up, and could not help but burst out into laughter, making pu sounds. The Wei Xianxian who had to endure all sorts of attention from the silk pants previous was still full of unhappiness in her heart. She could not help but fume as she pouted. However, seeing how Yu Bingyan suddenly burst out into laughter, she could not understand and asked, "Sister, what's the matter?" Yu Bingyan laughed as she replied, "I was thinking, this fellow is really interesting. He is obviously learned and talented beyond extreme, to the point that it would be difficult for him to maintain a low key. However, he chose to do the opposite and raise his infamy to the heavens, but no one suspects him, only thinking of him as an arrogant silk pants. Even for the banquet hosted by the emperor, he actually dared to not turn up for 2 days in a row. Even so, he is only merely cursed at. I'm now really curious, how did he fool the rest these past few years?" Hearing as such, Wei Xianxian also laughed, thinking of how she bitterly hated this name in the past. She could not help but giggle, "Weirdo. Huh, Sister Xianxian, why not we pay this weirdo a visit tomorrow?" Yu Bingyan's eyes were already gleaming, as her smile grew even wider. Chapter 96. Cat out of the bag. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 96. Cat out of the bag. Translator David T. Editor. Cell O. Sister, don't tell me you like that silk pants. Wei Xianxian looked at Yu Bingyan teasingly. Ah, you, sister, what are you talking about? Yu Bingyan's face turned red as she stomped her feet on the ground. However, she forgot that she was in a sedan, making the sedan shake unsteadily as the porters began to groan. Hee, sister, from how this fellow is able to endure so well, he is probably someone who will accomplish much in future. You should also consider him. Wei Xianxian eyes flashed. While she was saying that with a teasing smile, she meant something else within those words. Haze. Yu Bingyan sighed and said, how is it possible for me to not know that? Young noble Ling is of such a young age but has such a resolute character. How can it possible for him to be someone ordinary? Wei Xianxian then approached her ears and whispered, while the Ling family does not have any real strength now, the Ling family is still the biggest family in the sky-bearing empire. Furthermore, with someone like Ling Tian in the Ling family, this sister feels that you should seize the opportunity. Yu Bingyan's eyes turned serious as she considered the matter for a while before replying, while it may be of some help, it wouldn't be of much effect. You should also know, a battle fought at that level is not something which families like the Ling or Yang can take part in. Besides that, it will only harm him. I cannot. Wei Xianxian then exclaimed softly before quickly covering her mouth as she said nervously, Bingyan, you can't possibly be really moved, right? Yu Bingyan's eyes revealed a dim glow of depression as she said, even if I am moved, what can I do? You should also know about my body, how can I even find that person? Even if I find him and he agrees to help, I only have a few years left. A mere 3 years. Since I already know the ending, why should I drag another person down into bitterness with me? Whether or not I am moved, I will never do this. I only wish for him to pass by these few years well. Wei Xianxian's face turned dim as she thought for a moment, actually, there is a way. As she said that, Yu Bingyan interrupted her with a wave, sister, you do not need to say any further. I, Yu Bingyan, will rather die than do that. Wei Xianxian hurriedly said, but they already have men in the sky-bearing empire. This is the best excuse. Wouldn't it be a waste for you to miss such an opportunity? Yu Bingyan then said coldly, I have already decided, you do not need to say anything else. Wei Xianxian's face turned serious and did not say anything else. As though Yu Bingyan felt bad, she said in a gentler tone, sister, the both of us are actually just pitiful ladies who are under the arrangement of destiny. Why should we create more troubles? Wei Xianxian then sighed, you are just too kind. I have always found it strange as to why the old ancestor will give you such a name. With jade and ice in your name, making you sound like a cold and callous individual. But, you are instead someone with such a benevolent heart. Yu Bingyan then smiled, this, you better ask the old ancestor to find out. Wei Xianxian stuck out her tongue and said, I won't dare to. The two ladies then laughed, washing away the previously tense atmosphere. Ling Tian took Ling Chen, who was dressed as a man, approaching the door sneakily. With regards to Feng, Yun, Lei, Jian and Qi, Ling Tian had already taught them whatever he could and the rest was up to them. But in the past 2 days, Ling Chen trained with the 5 of them every day and grew more excited by the day. Seeing how the 5 cold-blooded killers would first not know whether to laugh or cry, then grimacing in pain, then begging for mercy with bruises all over and finally lying on the floor unable to move, Ling Chen felt extremely carefree and enjoyable. Every day, she would plead to Ling Tian to go again the next day when they just reached home. After a few days, the few assassins did not dare to voice out their grievances. As they were trained by Ling Chen's cruel beatings, they also experienced a great increase in their strength. With regards to the strange hobby which Ling Chen developed, Ling Tian also chose to stay silent about it. Today morning, Ling Chen had already prepared fully and pulled Ling Tian out of the blanket which he was comfortably snuggled in. When the gates of the Ling family mansion was already in sight, the few servants guarding the gate had already greeted Ling Tian from afar. Ling Chen could not help but reveal an excited expression as she thought to herself, I can finally torture those few brats good again. Thinking about the few moves which Ling Tian taught her last night, Ling Chen wished that she could grow wings to fly to those brats and torture them immediately. Stop there. Where are you going? A familiar voice sounded as Chu Ting'er questioned with anger. At that moment, both the faces of Ling Tian and Ling Chen sulked as they heard the voice. After turning around slowly, Ling Tian forced out a smile. Good morning, mother. The morning air is so fresh today. The birds and singing, skies are clear, it is really such a beautiful day. Even the most unpleasant mood would be lifted with such a beautiful weather. Chu Ting'er's mouth twitched for a moment as her boiling anger dissipated by these few teasing words from her beloved son. After giving 2 stern coughs, she calmed herself down and said, the weather today is good indeed, but my mood is not good. It is extremely bad. As she said that, she thought about the hateful actions of Ling Tian and her anger began to simmer again. Ling Tian sighed bitterly as he grit his teeth and said, I wonder what made mother's mood so horrible. Chu Ting'er then gave a cold grunt, because of the good son I brought up. The good son who pretends to be obedient but disobeys me in secret. She glared at Ling Tian as she said that, speak. Where have you gone in the past 2 days? Knowing that the cat was out of the bag, he wittily replied, this child had been visiting friends for the past few days. I was having pleasant conversations with beauties all around and have benefited greatly. Ha! 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 Chu Ting'er laughed from anger as she roared, if not for the fact that I sent someone to ask Wang Bo, I would still be kept out of the loop now. You are really bold. Ask Wang Bo. Ask Wang Bo about. Ling Tian grit his teeth as he thought, so it was this little brat who let the news leak. After Chu Ting'er heard that his son had a good conversation with the ladies in the palace, including the daughter of Minister Wei and General Shen, she was doubtful in her heart but still kept on to that little hope. Thus, she sent someone to ask Wang Bo who Ling Tian was talking to in the past 3 days. If this matter was true, then she would have one less thing to worry about. The outcome can be easily imagined. After she asked, Wang Bo began to stutter. While he had the heart to conceal the matter for Ling Tian, their testimonies just did not match. After Chu Ting'er spotted the discrepancies in both their statements, she paid a personal visit to Wang Bo and found out that Ling Tian only showed his face for a short while on the first day before disappearing. As for the next 2 days, he was completely nowhere to be found. After hearing this reply, Chu Ting'er's rage began to boil. Guessing that Ling Tian will sneak out today again, she woke up early today specially to catch him in the act. Seeing how Ling Tian still wanted to deny the matter, she just wanted to give him a good beating. Kneel down. In anger, Chu Ting'er's voice began to grow sharper. Kneel down. Right, here. As Ling Tian looked at the servants by the door, he said with embarrassment. Where else do you expect? If you are not going to kneel down, I will. Chu Ting'er said with exasperation, as she looked around in search for something good to use. She spent so much effort to create this plan with consort Ling Ran, even alerting the emperor, just to create this opportunity for Ling Tian. But, this fellow did not even bother turning up. The angered Chu Ting'er was extremely disappointed, almost wishing she could chase this unfilial son of hers out of the house. Seeing how her mother was really angered, Ling Tian could not help but feel apologetic in his heart and knelt down obediently to accept the furious education of his mother. Ling Tian's mother from his previous life had passed away early and he did not experience the love of a mother. This life, even if Chu Ting'er were to scold him or punish him, he would still feel extremely warm in his heart. In fact, he even felt like creating trouble on purpose at times so he can get scolded and punished by his mother. That would also be a great happiness for him. As Ling Chen saw that things was not going well, she also knelt down behind Ling Tian's back. Just when Ling Tian was kneeling down near the entrance of the mansion with Chu Tinger not bothering about her image as she lectured Ling Tian with her saliva flying all about, a small sedan stopped in the front of door and two young ladies walked out of it. One of them was extremely beautiful with an elegant and poised charisma surrounding her. Both the servants at the gate were covering their mouths as they giggled at the sight of their young master being punished. None of them noticed the two ladies walk into the mansion openly. Ah! An incredulous exclamation sounded from that beautiful lady. 1. Yu refers to jade, Bing refers to ice. Chapter 97. The Beauty Visits. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 97. The Beauty Visits. Translator David T. Editor. Sel Wei Xianxian and Yu Bingyan were afraid that if they came late, Ling Tian would be out pretending to be a silk pants again. Thus, they decided to arrive earlier. However, they never expected to witness such a show the moment they stepped into the mansion. They saw their idol, Ling Tian, kneeling on the floor pathetically and the usually demure and elegant wife of General Ling teaching her son a lesson with a finger pointed at him and her other hand by her waist. This scenario in front of them was miles apart from what the two ladies expected to see. They could not help but look at each other as they both thought, "Don't tell me we walking into the wrong house." If not for the fact that the one kneeling down was the young man who painted the beautiful painting and composed the amazing poem, both the ladies would probably turn and walk away immediately. Chu Tinger was even more surprised. Ever since the infamous name of her son spread it across the capital, this was the first time that a young lady of such an age walked into the gates of their Ling mansion. Furthermore, her unsightly behavior was witnessed by both the ladies. In awkwardness, she forced out a face full of smiles as she welcomed her guests. At the same time, she used her foot to nudge her own son, hinting him to get up quickly. "I wonder what both of you ladies are here at my Ling mansion for." Chu Tinger tried to make her voice sound gentler. But after flying into a rage a moment ago, her voice sounded extremely unnatural. Wei Xianxian and Yu Bingyan took a deep bow as they said, "This must be Auntie Ling, right? This niece is Wei Xianxian and my father is Wei Jingfeng, beside me is my younger cousin. I have always heard from my mother that Auntie is an outstanding person in the capital. After seeing you today, the rumors are indeed true." Chu Tinger immediately held her hand. So you are Xianxian. I have heard my son mention your name these past few days." The way you look, it must have been difficult for your parents. How did they bring up such a beautiful daughter like you?" No matter what, she first chose to praise her son. But she did not forget to add on some pleasantries. "Xianxian, are the health of your parents good? I have not seen your mother for quite some time and I really do miss her." "Thank you Auntie for your concern. Father and mother are both healthy. Mother also wants to pay a visit to Auntie, but she has not been able to find time because of the many affairs within the family. I will definitely relay Auntie's goodwill to my mother and I believe she will be very happy." Wei Xianxian was extremely tactful with her words and also a polite individual. The more Chu Tinger looked at her, the more Chu Tinger liked her. I wonder why Xianxian is here today?" Chu Tinger asked with confusion as she thought to herself, "I am only vaguely acquainted with Miss Wei. Ling Xiao, as a general, would almost never come into contact with Minister Wei who was the Minister of Rights. Why did his daughter come knocking on my doorstep? Us sisters are here today to find young noble Ling." Wei Xianxian looked towards Ling Tian as she said that. Chu Tinger could not help but grow nervous as she thought, "Don't tell me Ling Tian had harassed these two ladies. Doesn't seem that way, it doesn't seem like they are here with bad intentions." Chu Tinger began to grow excited as she thought, "Don't tell me it was true when Tianer said that he had a pleasant conversation with the ladies. This is a miracle." Ling Tian, who was just previously embarrassed in front of these two ladies, was now full of a self-satisfied expression without a trace of awkwardness. As the two ladies looked at him, Ling Tian also returned a smile with elegance, as though nothing had happened previously. However, Ling Chen who was behind him helped him feel embarrassed on his behalf. This young noble of mine, not only is his martial arts unrivaled under the heavens, his skin is also probably the thickest in the world. Looking at how Ling Tian was acting, the two ladies almost could not control themselves from laughing. If it was any other person who was caught in such a pathetic situation, they would have probably lost the face to see the world, escaping at the quickest possible speed and never leaving the house again. But this young noble Ling was actually able to act completely indifferently and even had a look of self-satisfaction. They could not help but think to themselves, it seems that these few years of acting as a silk pants was not for nothing. Not only is young noble Ling's painting and poetic skills amazing, his skin is also unnaturally thick. After seeing the spectacular display by young noble Ling the other day, this little girl thought that young noble must have been of royal descent, a royal prince. I never imagined that you were the young noble of the Ling family. I hope that young noble will forgive me for my rude behavior the other day. This little sister also hoped that young noble will forgive us for visiting on such short notice and not blame us for the uninvited visit. Yu Bingyan said calmly with a smile. The moment she opened her mouth, she narrowed the gap between them by changing this little girl to this little sister. With regards to how thick Ling Tian's skin was, Yu Bingyan was not surprised at all. After silently enduring for so many years, it would be a wonder if he did not have such thick skin. Seeing that these two ladies were here to pay a visit to her son instead of finding trouble, Chu Tinger's eyes widened in pleasant surprise. The ancestors of the Ling family had finally came through for her. If her son is able to change his ways and hug a beauty back home, Chu Tinger would feel as though she have no more regrets in life. Thus, she quickly invited the two ladies into the main hall. Before Ling Tian had a chance to greet Yu Bingyan, his mother had already warmly welcomed the both of them into the room. The two female guards of Yu Bingyan also followed closely behind her. With a bitter laugh, he looked at Ling Chen, only to see her trying to conceal her laughter as she asked, "Young noble, is this Miss Wei a candidate for your future wife?" Ling Chen shook his head and said, "Nope, but I am more interested in the one beside her." Ling Chen was startled, thinking about how Yu Bingyan was so tan and unattractive. She could not help but look towards Ling Tian with a strange appearance as she thought, don't tell me young noble's perception of beauty is also so different from others. As Ling Tian saw that weird expression on Ling Chen's face, he understood what she was thinking about. He did not know whether to laugh or cry, rubbing her head as he whispered to her, "Foolish lass, that lady is the little princess of the Yu family. She concealed her appearance. Stupid. Go back quickly and dress up properly." Ling Chen came to an immediately realization as she began to giggle. The young noble is indeed the young noble, his means are indeed exceptional, not having any problems with hooking up girls. In the guest room, Chu Tinger had already commanded the maids to serve fragrant tea as she sat there with a smile, studying the two ladies like a mother-in-law studying her future daughter-in-law. From time to time, she would nod her head with a smile, making the faces of both the ladies turn red from embarrassment, wanting to bury their heads in the ground. Chapter 98. Battle of Wits. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 98. Battle of Wits. Translator David T. Editor. Sel Ling Tian smiled and said, "Mother, if you continue staring at them like that, you will scare these two beautiful ladies." Chu Tinger then grunted as she thought to herself in frustration, this child, having such a glib tongue in front of the two ladies. What if the both of them end up misunderstanding him? She could not help but glare at Ling Tian. Thinking about how the two ladies were here to find her son, it didn't seem right for her to still be present. Thus, Chu Tinger stood up and said, "Tianer, since the two ladies came here specially to look for you, they must have something to discuss with you. Your mother is a little tired and I will be going back to my room first. Xian, tell your mother that I will definitely pay her a visit at a later date." Both the ladies stood up and sent her off with a bow, "Thank you auntie, let us send you off." They also heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. As Chu Ting'er saw how both the ladies were relieved of a burden as though they could not help but wish she was gone, she laughed in her heart. When she walked to the door, she sent an eye signal to Ling Tian, signaling him to find her. She then whispered to him, "This Xian isn't too bad, mother likes her a lot. Tiana, you must grasp this opportunity well, if." As she said that, her face turned red as she nudged Ling Tian to walk out a little further with her. Ling Tian was extremely clear that his mother wanted to teach him a trick or two and could not help but laugh bitterly. While Chu Ting'er was ignorant, Ling Tian knew that it was impossible for these two ladies to be alone. The two experts would have definitely followed them here. If his mother gives him some rotten idea in desperation for a daughter.in.law, it would definitely be heard by the both of them. While he would not mind, it would not be good for his mother's reputation. Chu Ting'er, who wanted to teach some last-minute tips of how to woo a lady to her son, realized that her son completely did not understood what she meant. His eyes were only fixed on the two ladies as his body did not budge an inch. Fool! Idiot! Chu Ting'er was both angered and anxious in her heart. But, since she had already said that she was going to take her leave, she could only leave with a stomach full of resentment, cursing Ling Tian along the way. Seeing Chu Ting'er leave, the three of them let out a heave of relief in unison. They then could not help but stare at each other as they burst out into laughter. As they laughed, the distance between the three of them narrowed all of a sudden. Ling Tian then opened his mouth first. "I wonder what both of you ladies are looking for me for." Although he was extremely clear why they looked for him, he feigned ignorance on the surface. Both the ladies focused their gaze on Ling Tian as Yu Bingyan said with a smile, "Mr. Teary dreams of worldly affairs, we meet again." "Huh, young noble Ling Tian, really hid yourself well. Your schemes really makes this little sister admire you." However, she did not answer Ling Tian's question but made a joke. Her meaning was obvious, "Since we already saw through your disguise, there is no need for you to act like a silk pants in front of us." Ling Tian gave a wide smile as he said, "I'm guilty. After seeing that both of you ladies were unfamiliar and that you were painting, I could not help but have a go at it, disgracing myself. I thought that we would be strangers in passing and not meet each other again, but I never expected the both of you to be so resourceful, finding where I stay. Rest assured, if I, Ling Tian, still acts like a silk pants, that would be too disrespectful." Ling Tian's words explained why he revealed his talents as he subtly indicated that it was a casual gesture of his with no intentions of getting to know the both of them. Thus, it made it seem as though he had no ulterior motives behind his actions and he was a gentleman. Both the ladies smiled as each other and Yu Bingyan asked again, "I wonder why young noble concealed yourself as such. Why go to such lengths?" Ling Tian responded with a laugh, "Both of you ladies are considered smart and understand my Ling family. Why is there a need to ask such a question? This brat is indeed a good talker." While he answered their question, it can be said that he did not answer them at all, as good as saying nothing. The reason why Ling Tian was concealing himself was a huge taboo for anyone present to mention it. The both ladies felt extremely depressed. Yu Bingyan then composed herself and did not beat about the bush any further. "Back then, this little sister saw your mystical painting skills and deeply admired you in my heart. Today, I paid a sudden visit to young noble in hope that you can teach me." Just when Ling Tian was laughing to himself as he saw how the both of them were stumped for words, Yu Bingyan suddenly cut to the chase. He could not help but praise in his heart, "This little princess of the Yu family is indeed extraordinary, with every single word of hers so gentle but yet so strong." Yu Bingyan's words sounded extremely simple. It first stated her purpose for coming to answer Ling Tian's previous question. At the same time, it was to prevent herself from being led on by Ling Tian's words. Furthermore, she purposefully emphasized on how she witnessed his mystical painting skills to remind Ling Tian that if he did not agree, his secret would no longer be kept. Ling Tian laughed bitterly, "Forgive my rudeness, but I have not asked this little sister for your name." At the same time, he joyfully thought to himself, "This is the greatest benefit of acting as a silk pants. If not, how can I call a random lady who I just met a little sister? Yu Bingyan was stunned for a moment as she realized that she had only been calling herself little sister, and had not introduced herself yet. The words of Ling Tian was obviously trying to tease her. She could not help but be embarrassed and angered as she said hatefully, "This little girl has the surname Yu Bingyan." Ling Tian snickered in his heart. After hearing how she called herself little girl instead, it was obvious that she was dissatisfied. With a smile, he said, "The autumn waters as God with the frozen jade as colors. This little sister has a good name. It seems that the one who came up with this little sister's name is also an exceptional person. I wonder who is this talented figure." Yu Bingyan was stumped as she thought to herself, "This fellow is obviously trying to find out my origins. He is actually trying to find that out from my name. Furthermore, he is able to maintain such a calm disposition when asking that. It seems that when he heard my surname, he already had an idea of where I came from." Only then did she realize that she had already fell for his trap. In embarrassment and anger, she had given out her name. In this generation, it was a completely different meaning for a lady to give her name to a guy. Thinking about this, her face could not help but burn as she heard him calling her little sister again. Looking at the smirk of self-satisfaction which Ling Tian seemed to have, Yu Bingyan was both abashed and angered as she scolded, "Since you have already guessed it, why bother asking?" As she said that, she was also shocked by her own tone as she thought, "Just what is wrong with me? Why am I so easily influenced by him?" She could not help but take a few deep breaths in order to calm herself down. Ling Tian laughed, "That's right. So, this little sister is indeed born in an aristocratic family. No wonder you carry yourself with such a dignified and graceful bearing." At the same time, he snickered in his heart, "Lass, it is far too late for you to find out now." However, Ling Tian's words gave Yu Bingyan a misconception, so, he was only guessing previously but did not dare to be certain. It seems that my words were akin to confirming his guess. As she thought about that, she was no longer willing to be on the defense. Thus, she initiated an attack. "Young noble Ling says that this little sister has a graceful bearing. But, this little sister's appearance is not worth mentioning at all. It seems that you are ridiculing this little sister's ugly appearance." Chapter 99. Fighting Beauty with Beauty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 99. Fighting Beauty with Beauty. Translator David T. Editor. Ling Tian chucked in his heart as he thought, "This lass is really difficult to deal with, not willing to suffer even the smallest of losses. Can that fake face of yours really fool me?" He then replied with a smile, "I called little sister as little sister and you also refer to yourself as such. However, you call me young noble Ling. Ha ha ha, it seems that while this little sister addresses yourself as such, you still see me as an outsider." As Ling Tian said that, he let out a deep sigh. However, he purposefully said many, little sister, making his whole sentence sound like a tongue twister. Thus, it made his sigh seem very artificial, carrying with it a subtle teasing. Yu Bingyan became displeased as she thought to herself, "If I don't call you young noble Ling, should I call you brother Ling?" Between man and women, apart from siblings with blood ties and a married couple, which female will address another man as a brother? For me to call myself little sister is merely a means to close the distance between us. It is not wrong at all for me to call myself little sister. However, for you to also call me little sister, it is already a little rude of you. Now, you are actually claiming that I am in the wrong." Yu Bingyan could not help but reply with a chilly tone, "Young noble Ling, such a joke should not be cracked." Ling Tian replied with a chuckle, "Since I said something like this, then do little sister think that I have any intentions of discriminating against your looks?" Yu Bingyan's was stumped as she thought, "This brat. So this is where you were planning to trap me." But, Ling Tian's reply made her at a complete loss for words. If she was willing to call Ling Tian brother, he would definitely accept such an address. But, how could she bring herself to call someone brother so easily? Thought the both of them had only met a couple of times. If Yu Bingyan was not willing to call him brother, it made her seem very narrow-minded. But how was it possible for Yu Bingyan to bring herself to calling him brother? If she were to really call him that, this fellow will definitely have another hidden card awaiting her. At that time, with his thick skin, he may even insist that the both of them had already agreed to marriage. Then wouldn't she be in trouble? At that moment, she was filled with awkwardness and did not know what to say. As Wei Xianxian saw how the both of them began to bicker the moment they talked, she observed them with a smile. But seeing how Yu Bingyan was on the losing end, she giggled in her heart before helping her to defuse the situation. Young noble Ling lives up to his name as Silk Pants indeed, showing no mercy to a young lady at all. Ling Tian then laughed to the sky as he replied, I'm guilty. But this little sister from the Yu family is extremely witty. If I do not choose my words carefully, I would have already made a fool out of myself. I hope that you will not mind. As Yu Bingyan heard that, her face turned around as she grunted in anger. Ling Tian feigned ignorance to the hidden spears in Xianxian's words, obviously only targeting his spear at her. Ling Tian then smiled and continued, this place is the main hall of the family and it is inconvenient to continue our conversation here. I wonder if I can have the honor of inviting the both of you to my study to continue. The eyes of both ladies lit up as they thought, we were waiting for these words of yours. This fellow, pretending not to hear our hints just now. But now that we aren't requesting for it, you decide to take the initiative. Both the ladies looked at each other, sharing the same thoughts. Ling Tian was completely unconventional with the way he speaks, often catching them off guard. At the same time, he is always able to defuse their original plans with just a few simple words without any difficulty. They could not help but be startled at his terrifying wisdom. While Ling Tian led the way in front, both the ladies enjoyed the scenery along the way, following behind Ling Tian's back. At the same time, the two female guards followed closely behind them like their shadows. Ling Tian could also detect that with his spiritual sense that both the mysterious experts had also followed them here. It seems that ever since Yu Bingyan saw him, that person's aura had been locked onto him. He could not help but praise in his heart, this person is a really good bodyguard. Even if I was in their shoes, I wouldn't be able to think of a better plan. If Yu Bingyan were to have any mishap in the Ling family, it would be the best move to make me the first target. In the small courtyard, Ling Chen had already prepared everything well, standing by the door to welcome them. As the two ladies saw Ling Chen, they were filled with shock with a tinge of admiration. Ling Chen, who was by the door, was dressed in simple white clothes, with her clothes like snow, fluttering in the winds freely. She was like the fairy on the mood, sweeping the palace and awaiting her visitor. On her waist was a green-colored piece of jade drooping down, making her slender waist stand out all the more. Her black silky hair was tied up neatly with a simple jade hairpin. As though something was embedded within the jade hairpin, it reflected the sunlight and shone with a colorful light. Her eyebrows were like willows, her almond-shaped eyes were glistening in the sun, carrying with them a subtle smile. Her expression was like the ocean, as her lips was a shade of beautiful and natural pink. Her neck was like a beautiful swan, proudly holding up her beautiful head. Below her sleek shoulders was a busty but humbly concealed chest, elegant and natural. Below her waist, her rear was perfectly sized, giving her figure an elegant curve to further perfect her beauty. As the winds blew gently, the folds of her skirt fluttered, slightly revealing her perfect and smooth long legs. Ling Chen stood there silently, as though all of the elegance in the world had converged on her. It was a completely dazzling scene. It was just like a beautiful painting, making one feel as though even a single trace of admiration in their heart would be a blasphemy against her and a cardinal sin. Ling Chen and Ling Tian had been together for 10 years already and their chemistry came from deep within their bones. With a single instruction from Ling Tian to dress up well, Ling Chen had already understood Ling Tian's true purpose. He wanted to use her own beauty to completely destroy the pride of the little princess from the Yu family, which was accumulated over the years by growing up in an aristocratic family. Ling Tian liked a proud woman. But, the condition must be that they cannot be proud in front of him. Now, Ling Chen was just like a fairy who was untainted by the secular realm. She only had a single accessory, the jade hairpin. But, it increased her eye-catching beauty even further. Yu Bingyan and Wei Xianxian both felt that if there was even one more accessory on her, it would spoil her untainted beauty instead. As graceful as a celestial. As elegant as a fairy. There is actually such a beautiful lady in this world. Both the ladies could not help but be stunned from deep within their hearts. At this moment, Wei Xianxian, who always had great self-confidence, could not help but feel a sense of inferiority. At this moment, Ling Tian's sensitive senses felt that the aura locked onto him had a violent fluctuation. It was obvious that this mysterious expert was also stunned by Ling Chen's breathtaking beauty. This is. After finally snapping out of their daze, the both of them asked. Ling Tian then replied indifferently, "Oh, her. She is my personal maidservant called Ling Chen. She is a lass who does not know anything." Both the ladies felt speechless at that moment, such a beautiful lady being described as a lass who does not know anything. He is really tarnishing this beauty, spoiling such a beautiful scene. Ling Chen then stepped up calmly as she took a half kneel. Ling Chen pays her respect to the young noble and two ladies. Her voice was also sweet, sounding and pleasant to the ears. Both the ladies stretched out their hands simultaneously and helped her up as they said with empathy, "Miss need not be so polite." Ling Tian then laughed, "Ladies, this way please." As he walked past Ling Chen, he gave her a look of praise. As Ling Chen saw that, a trace of delight could be seen in her eyes. Chapter 100. Apprentice, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 100. Apprentice Translator. David T. Editor. Cell in the study, everything was neatly placed. The bookshelf was neatly arranged with books, and everything on the table was well organized. On the snow-white wall, a few paintings and calligraphy hung on it quietly. The words were all in cursive and the painting was done with paint splashing, with the both of them complementing each other well. Outside the window, there was a small bamboo cluster swaying gently in the winds. In front of the window was a jade flute which was completely white in color and clarinet in deep purple. The two female guards waited outside as Wei Xianxian and Yu Bingyan followed Ling Tian in. The moment they entered the room, they could feel that the room was extraordinary. As they raised their heads, they could see the painting and calligraphy hanging on the wall. The difference between both the ladies showed immediately at this moment. Yu Bingyan walked towards the painting as though she saw a treasure, studying it bit by bit with all her focus. As for Wei Xianxian, she walked towards the words with a gentle smile, admiring the poem word by word. There is no need to listen to the raindrops. Why not hum a tune as you stroll casually through the rain? The bamboo staff and straw shoes are better than a horse, what's there to be afraid of? A raincoat made from straw is enough to spend a lifetime in the rain. The chilly winds made me sober from the alcohol. In the chilly winds, the warm setting sun was welcoming me just over the mountain peak. Looking back at the rainy place I came from, I wandered back there aimlessly. Since I am not fearful of the wind and rain, I am not fearful of the sunlight. In the start, Wei Xianxian was quietly admiring the poem. But after saw the lines of words, she could not help but recite them as a look of excitement filled her face. Good poem. A really good poem. What a beautiful concept. What a carefree heart. Young noble Ling, is this one of your works? Wei Xianxian turned back, with her eyes burning with passion even exceeding Yu Bingyan. Ling Tian then nodded his head calmly as though it was only to be expected, "That's right, this is my humble writing which is nothing more than sentimental nonsense. I really made a fool out of myself." Ling Tian replied humbly. If the late Su Shi were to hear him say this, he would definitely get up from his death just to strangle this brat, fighting him to the death. Wei Xianxian's smile was filled with admiration as she said, young noble Ling is too humble. At this moment, Ling Chen walked in quietly with a tray of tea. Ling Tian also made use of this opportunity to change the topic away from this slightly uncomfortable one, drawing their attentions to the tea that was served. While there wasn't a Su Shi in this world, Ling Tian wasn't too comfortable with making the works of others his own. Both the ladies walked out from the shock Ling Tian created at the same time. As they looked towards each other, they could see the bitterness and excitement in the other party's eyes. No matter who it was, if they were to realize that they could not hold a candle at all to someone else in the area they were most proud of, it was inevitable for them to feel dejected. Yu Bingyan first walked over. Just when Ling Tian wanted to serve them tea, Yu Bingyan's hands shot out swiftly and snatched the teacup, which Ling Tian was about to grab, into her own hands. This action of hers was extremely swift, displaying how she was indeed born in the Yu family and had a set of extraordinary martial arts as well. However, Ling Tian was shocked in his heart as he felt doubtful. While Yu Bingyan's actions were really swift, it was nothing in Ling Tian's eyes. Even Ling Chen was far faster than her in terms of speed. From this point, it can be deduced that Yu Bingyan's level of martial arts was only equivalent to her two female guards. This was the point which Ling Tian was confused about. The little princes of the Yu family, which had 1,000 years of martial heritage, would have definitely been trained since young. According to that logic, Yu Bingyan's martial arts should be a head above the rest at her age. Even if she isn't comparable to Ling Chen, she shouldn't be too far off. But the truth was, Yu Bingyan's martial arts is extremely poor. While her speed was fast and movements agile, it was unable to conceal the fact that she had shallow inner qi. Why is this the case? From the two experts he saw, Ling Tian was sure that the Yu family had the ability to groom Yu Bingyan into someone who was peerless in her generation. Did the Yu family not do that? Or is there another reason? As Ling Tian thought about those questions, he looked towards Yu Bingyan with an investigative gaze. As Yu Bingyan saw the doubt in Ling Tian's eyes, she only thought that Ling Tian was puzzled about why she snatched his teacup. She could not help but smile as she stood up straight, lifting up the teacup with both her hands. Then, she served it to Ling Tian and bowed down respectfully. This was a formal bow for an apprentice to seek a teacher. Ling Tian was startled as he jumped up and responded anxiously, "You, little sister, what are you doing?" Although Ling Tian already knew that the both of them were here to learn painting, he never expected the little princess of the Yu family to make him her formal teacher. Ling Chen, by the side, also had her eyes widened in shock. Yu Bingyan then said respectfully, "I hope that young noble Ling will accept me as your apprentice to teach me painting." At the same time, she was depressed in her heart as she thought, if I do not establish master and apprentice ties between us, I would be doing great harm to you if the both of us develop a relationship in the future. After a few encounters, Yu Bingyan knew that she already had an extremely favorable impression towards this suave and knowledgeable youth. If she does not nip it in the bud and continue to interact with him, she will probably fall in completely. If that's the case, Ling Tian and his family will also be dragged down to eternal damnation. After giving it much thought, she suddenly thought of recognizing him as a master. She thought that as long as they had a proper master-disciple status, she would definitely not think too much about the matter. It would also help her to avoid some awkwardness and she will be able to learn the painting skills which she had dreamt of. This was akin to killing many birds with a single stone. Ling Tian quickly waved his hands in rejection, "No, definitely not. Both of us are similar in age and it is sufficient for us to exchange knowledge as peers. I will definitely not withhold anything from you. Why is there a need to recognize me as your master? Little sister, aren't you trying to torture me?" Yu Bingyan continued to remain bowed as she said, "If master does not agree, I will not get up." At the same time, she thought, "You fool. I am trying to protect you. Wei Xianxian, who was by the side, also persuaded, young noble Ling, my cousin sincerely wants to learn how to paint. Why must young noble Ling reject her? It is best for you to just agree. At the same time, she sighed in her heart, my foolish sister, you really gave the matter so much thought. Ling Tian shook his head hard, definitely not. Miss you, it is best for you to get up, I can never accept this matter. If this matter were to spread, won't I become the greatest laughing stock in the world? In anxiousness, Ling Tian also changed the way he addressed her from little sister to miss you. Yu Bingyan said with disappointment, don't tell me that young noble Ling thinks that I am utterly hopeless to teach. Ling Tian was forced helpless by her, rubbing his head with a frustrated expression. Suddenly, he had a flash of brilliance as he smiled, says who? I only said that I will not accept you as an apprentice, since when did I say that I will not teach you painting? Yu Bingyan's body shook as she looked up and asked, I wonder what young noble Ling means by this. Ling Tian made use of that opportunity to help her up as he said with a smile, you're still calling me young noble Ling. I have called you little sister so many times already. Is there any reason for an elder brother to not teach his little sister? Little sister, if you are not willing to call me brother, you should be willing to call me elder brother, right? In good mood, he could not help but tease her. 2. Yu Bingyan stood up straight as her heart turned blank. Her original intent was to force him out, but this foolish pighead decided to just charge in straight. Just what should she do? Seeing how she was at loss, Ling Tian joked, I never imagined that Miss Yu looked down on this silk pants. Yu Bingyan sighed deeply in her heart as she said, this little sister will just listen to what elder brother says. At the same time, she thought, since things are already like that, I can only conceal that matter to the death. I just have to make sure that he doesn't find out. Ling Tian laughed with satisfaction in his heart. He could not help but receive the teacup as he smiled, since I can't drink tea from an apprentice, let me drink this from a younger sister. Yu Bingyan's face turned red as she retracted the teacup back, nope, I won't allow you to drink any tea now. Just when Ling Tian wanted to snatch it over with a smile, his eyes suddenly narrowed and his gaze was locked onto Yu Bingyan's hands. Sunlight from the rising sun shone through the window and right on the tender hands of Yu Bingyan. It made her hands look like transparent white jade and her fingers like exquisite art. However, this was not what Ling Tian noticed. Ling Tian stared hard at Yu Bingyan's hands with a face of disbelief. At this moment, he suddenly understood why Yu Bingyan's martial arts was so weak despite being the little princess of the Yu family. Under the sunlight, the meridians on her hands were completely shown. Under the sunlight, the meridians which were supposed to be light green were actually a strange purple-black on Yu Bingyan's hands. 1. The poem above was written by Su Shi. Su Shi is a famous poet from the Song dynasty. 2. The first, brother, refers to how a wife would call her spouse. The second, elder brother, refers to a sibling-like address.